Hey, Matt here. I just wanted to talk today about the property assessment process, and um, we've received ours in the mail, and the value changed quite drastically. So, uh, actually went down. I believe it was 28%. So, being in the industry, seeing it quite often, seeing assessments often, I can look at that and maybe not have as much of a reaction. But to be honest with you, when it's your own property, it's your own finances, you see it, and it's quite shocking. So I'm just going to go through. I'll include links to all of this in the notes. But the actual process outlined on the BC Assessment website is it's broken down into three steps. So the first step is that they collect the information. So they're saying that they collect information analyzed by BC assessment appraisers for all properties in British Columbia. So you can imagine that it's quite a large scale project year over year. So the level of detail that they can get into on every specific property, I can imagine would be very challenging, and would be very relied upon in terms of similar systems that we would use to auto evaluate properties using technology that brings in recent sale comparables, all those different things. I'm not sure on this, but I'd imagine it does not include any improvements in the actual property, those kinds of things of what it actually would sell for based on that. So remember, if you're doing any of those things, just be aware that that's not always necessarily included and or known by the municipality. So the second step in the process is they analyze the information. So they analyze property sales are analyzed by the BC assessment appraisers to understand the property market value as of July 1st of each year. So when you receive your assessment in January, let's say this year, January 2020, that value is actually a reflection of what it would have been in July at July 1st, 2019. So, taking into account, the market can shift very, very quickly, especially down in areas like Vancouver, North Vancouver, West Vancouver, and really everywhere in the Lower Mainland. Values can move quickly based on market conditions. So it's very important to know that that's not today's value. It's their estimated value from the previous July 1st. So then they generally mail out, and they mail out the assessments on December 31st each year. So that's why you should have yours in the mail by now. So that's where it gets into sort of the key dates in terms of the assessments is you have until January 31st to review the assessment or appeal the assessment. So that's always noted on the actual assessment that you receive in the mail. So if you do want to do that, maybe in your best interest, maybe you're looking to sell the property, maybe you want the assessment to show higher, maybe you don't agree with it. But if I always like to look at it as though the value of the home generally does not matter until we want to access funds from it. And there's two ways that we generally do that. There is selling the property and accessing the equity to purchase another home, downsize, whatever the case is, upsize, so many different options there. The other option would be if we're accessing equity out of the home for investment, for renovation, for purchasing a second home, a rental property. Those would be the times that we would very much want the value to be as high as possible. But if we're in a situation and we're in a very good fixed term, or your variable rate mortgage is working very well, the actual value of the home during the ownership of it doesn't really change anything because the mortgage won't be affected. Lenders they're not going to come back and say anything during the course of that actual term. So it's really only when we want to access funds out of the property. So I always like to say, don't get it's probably not best to get too attached to what the value is doing over the course of the ownership of it. I mean, ideally it's trend. The trend is our friend. Hopefully it's trending in the right direction. Given the Lower Mainland, generally it does. So just be patient and just understand that these things do happen in real estate markets, and we will see corrections. We'll see, increases in value, and hopefully over time it does well. So they also say October 31st. Well, the July 1st is the valuation date. So that's the actual day that they determine that's the day that they determine the value from. And then what they're saying in key dates here is October 31st is a physical condition and permitted use. So what they're saying is the assessment reflects the physical condition and permitted use, meaning the zoning of the property, as of October 31st. In this year's assessment, that would have been October 31st, 2019, except where substantial damage or destruction of the buildings occur. So if something happens to the property between that time and when they issue the assessment, I'd imagine they would update that. And then December 31st is when they've completed the assessments, and then provide those to you, mailed out to the property owners and provided that way. So really, if you have questions, if you think that your value is incorrect, we can always look at appealing it, or maybe it's okay because it's really not needing to do anything in terms of we're not planning to do anything with the property in the meantime. Most industry professionals that I speak with on a daily basis, top real estate agents and very trusted people, assessments generally, a lot of people look at them when they're putting offers on homes or when they're selling their property, but it's really not the most exact value when determining fair market value today. Because let's say we plan to sell in July of 2020, just as an example. Well, that's a whole year's change from when that assessment actually occurred. So many things can be affected and change in that period of time. So it's a good starting point to look at, but it doesn't take into effect what's actually happening in the market, any improvements that you've made in the home, any rezoning that's happened after that October 31st date, so many different things. So, it's great to have. They use it. They've been going up quite a bit in value for a few years. They've been dropping a little bit over the last couple of years as sort of an average. So if you have any questions on this, reach out to us, reach out to the team, and we're happy to talk through it, connect you with a professional of the real estate world that can help with that as well. But what I would take away is if you want to know the value of your home, have an expert that's in the industry, that's in your market, that knows it very well, come in and or just give you an idea of what it's worth. I hope that helps. Hope you have a great week, and very much look forward to connecting with you soon. And take care. Thanks. Bye bye.